All right. So Legend of Korra has been done for a while. And despite that, there's a lot of love for it. There seems to be also a lot of strong hate. Mainly that people feel that it's a bad sequel and that it never should have existed. Like basically that's what literally some people are saying. So we're going to express our opinions, whether we feel that is Korra really a bad sequel to The Last Airbender, and does it deserve the hate it's getting in terms of a sequel? So
Yeah, I'll outright say no because I am a fan of Korra.
What about Yossi?
Korra is the trash. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, Korra is not a bad show. And the idea that we're better off, like it's better if it was never made, is kind of crazy to me. I don't think that, I think that we got a lot of great stuff out of Korra, out of Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it for what it is. I like it as a show. There's some weak elements. It's nowhere near as good of a whole show as Last Airbender, but it's a fine show. It's better than a lot of other shows in my opinion. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
agreed.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we should start by, I guess we're going to start by season. So let's start with season 1. And all of us rewatched it just so we can have a good narrow view about this. So after watching season 1, what do you feel about season 1? Do you still enjoyed it more, or do you feel like, gosh, like,
That's an interesting question. I think this is where we're going to start changing or having differing opinions.
yeah,
For me personally, I thought season 1 was okay. Like back then, I feel like I thought season 1 was good and stuff. But there's a video that I'm going to release pretty soon, if not already released, where I talk about how they made a huge mistake in season 1, which was the end of season 1,
yeah,
Yeah.
when they had basically the spirit of Aang give Korra her powers back.
yeah,
And then everything was good, and she somehow can master she somehow can enter the avatar state no problem, even though
Yeah.
Aang had such a hard time doing that.
yeah.
That made no sense.
Yeah, their excuse was
But that was the ending. That was like the very ending. So in terms of season 1 and without like that ending, I think it was okay. It wasn't like great, but it was good to me.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so there are two things with season 1. There's my memory of the first time watching season 1, because the first time watching season 1 is not the same as watching it again.
Agreed.
yeah, definitely.
And I remember that the first time I watched season 1, I loved it. I was like all into it until it got to the ending. And I'm specifically talking about, I was like completely wrapped up in the narrative of the Equalists and their mission, and Amon, who is like fighting for the rights of non-benders, and he feels like benders are oppressing non-benders. I thought that whole idea and then playing around with it, I thought that was great, and so I was along for the ride for that whole thing. Until we find out that, oh no, Amon's really a bender and he's just been playing with everybody and he's toying as a mastermind. And I kind of just like, it deflated everything for me. And then he died, and so there was no there was nothing else that could come from it. So you just ended it right there.
Dang it. Why'd they kill him off?
Yeah.
And so watching it again, I'm coming into it now knowing where it's going. And so watching it again, I was still able to enjoy it. I not as much as I enjoyed it last time, but it was still like a fun time. It was still like it was great being able to get introduced to these new characters, and I thought that their introductions were great. And season 1 kind of it reminded me like just how the show. I think honestly that the show's comedy is a little bit better than the original Last Airbender's comedy.
Interesting.
I think so. I honestly just like with the little things.
It depends. If you're talking about Varric, I will
But
agree.
Varric's not season 1,
Not
though.
even just
We're
Varric,
not going
though.
there.
I'm talking about just like the little things of like the different characters' facial expressions when something happens. Like there's some details that they put into
if you're talking
it.
about art, certainly. apparently.
Like there's some details that they put into it. Like somebody smacks something out of Bolin's head and he like picks it up again and just like it's just like those small things. And then Milo's character, I thought was hilarious. But honestly, that was how I went into it, because I wasn't as taken by the story just because I knew where it was going this time. But I was able to appreciate those other elements of it. And so I liked it for that reason.
Yeah. So season 1, rewatching it, I definitely agree with most of what OC said. The comedy is a little bit debatable. But yeah, definitely I love the idea of the Equalists. I think that the story is very interesting. One thing I noticed with season 1 is I feel like the animation was a lot more better and smoother than all the other seasons. Because I felt like rewatching season 1, I don't know what it was, but it felt fluid and consistent. And I'll get to my gripes with animation, especially in season 2, about how it just looked a little bit different and sloppy at times. But I feel like it was a lot more smoother and consistent with season 1. Yeah, the ending again. Like my biggest problem isn't just the fact with the whole with the Amon thing, but even then, it's like how she learned airbending, or she's like, I can airbend, which it was a good what's it called? It was a good moment in terms of subverting your expectations, but at the same time, you're just wondering, how the hell do you just learn how to airbend conveniently after losing your bending? So I kind of didn't like that. That kind of ruined my thing.
Didn't she airbend with Amon?
Yeah, she did.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
He's like,
okay.
How did she learn how to airbend?
It's just because she was struggling with it, and then she just gets it right at that moment. Just came off like a little bit like, yeah, just everything just comes to the end, and then like they kill the villain off. And I can tell again with season 1, like, and this is what's very important with Korra, and this is something that we have to address when we're talking about the show, is that the show was always meant to be a one-off series. So I felt like with season 1, I feel like, again, the writers, because the writers are not really, the writers this time was just them, because usually when Avatar came, they usually have a team with them. So season 1, it was just them. I can tell that they weren't really, like, they loved the idea, but they didn't know how they wanted to end it. So you can tell with season 1, the way it ended, it was like, oh man, how do we end this? Like, this is such a, like, they created an OP villain. How do we just beat this OP villain? Well, he kills himself at the end, whatever. Like, everything's dead.
Technically, it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. It's technically his brother who killed himself at the end. But the point is, I can forgive season 1 for what it was. It definitely, again, it like a little bit upset with it. But I looked at it as like and this is the way I look at the whole Korra series, is like every season feels like it's like Korra feels more like a movie, where every season's like its own movie, but they have like events from the past. So I feel like this one was more like the mystery and like suspense, and I really enjoy that with it. And I have to say, and I, again, like I have other than the ending, I definitely think it's worth checking out with season 1. But now we got to get to the big one, the big polarization called season 2 of Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
So how did we feel about the polarization after rewatching it?
Yeah. Season 2, just like rewatching it, just solidified for me why I hate season 2 so much. And like, honestly, so the biggest thing about season 2 is Korra becomes such an unlikable character to me. I just absolutely dislike Korra in season 2. Her sudden like shift in loyalty to her family and her friends just makes no sense to me.
Agreed.
And I don't and so I think that for me, that's why, like, I don't care about this character.
Why is she acting so angry and like ungrateful to Tenzin and her dad? It was just it came out of left field for me. And I thought that there needed to be a stronger reason for it.
Okay, season 2. This is tough because I feel like this might be another video on, like, I don't want to say I defend it, but I don't really hate it as much after rewatching it.
Yeah, once I finish my video, I have like a thing where I basically rewrote book 2.
But I guess my main thing is that I felt like, I guess to sum up my points with season 2 would be like, I understand where Korra's been known to be sort of like, so you know how Aang was just the Avatar where he didn't want to be the Avatar? Korra's like the opposite. So she's supposed to be this like, I want to be the Avatar. And I guess what they were trying to do with season 2 is showing how like that, like what happens when you have an avatar that's very like narcissistic, very like no one can handle me, whatever. I'm the boss. I'm the, type of personality, right? And this is kind of like the conflicts or the flaws with it, where it's like now she's too rude for her own masters because she thinks she can handle everything on her own. And partially why she acts like that again was that she never was what's it called? She was always sheltered her life. So she never like knew, like she's kind of ignorant to some degree. So because of that, there's a lot of attitudes like that. Again, I wish my biggest problem with the show, or at least this season, was that I wish they empathized with that. They didn't really like, I got it because I like, it's subtle. Like you see it in season 1, and it's like these subtle things that I started to get from like watching the show, being into writing, also like listening to the interviews of the writers. So I understood the perspective they're trying to go for. Again, it was just executed poorly, especially with Unalaq. Like I can tell that Unalaq.
I hate Unalaq.
Yeah, Unalaq. Like I can tell what they wanted to do, and this is kind of my problem with season 2 was that. So they presented this. Korra already was a show that tried to be kind of gray, right? It's like there's no such thing as good or bad. It's like, everyone has a little bit of evil or whatever, bad intentions. I feel like they want to do that with Unalaq, with him trying to say that there's no such thing as, like, he said it in like the first episode of season, or the first episode in season 2, where he said that there's no such thing as good spirits or dark spirits. It's just they're good or there's no good and evil. They're just light and dark, right? But the way it was presented was that, well, dark is dark, like Vaatu is the root of all evil. So why are you with the root of all evil? Yeah. And they just didn't explain what he saw into Vaatu. It was just like he's just an evil villain, and it's just there's a lot of ideas that they took away. But the reason why I was able to enjoy it was that they brought one of my favorite characters in the and I felt that every time I saw Varrick, it made like every scene was just interesting with him. And it's like, and on one hand, it's like it's screwed up that he's trying to profit off a war, but on the other hand, he's also helping them. And it also made sense how they're able to get all this technology. Because Varrick's like, oh yeah, just take my battleship, just have it. He's like the Tony Starks of their world. So I think for me, I like that. And then they also give Tenzin character development, which was also something I kind of liked, where Tenzin always saw himself being like, he's Aang's kid, so he's to be the next Aang. And then Aang tells him that you're not me.
We do get more interaction with him and his siblings in season 2.
So I like that we saw that aspect of it as well.
I like aspects of it, but at the same time, I wish those aspects tied more with the overall story of book 2.
Yeah.
Because what I said in my video that I already wrote is that Varrick's sort of subplot didn't have much effect on the overall thing. Because if you take it out completely, you would still end up in the same place. Because Korra will still fight Unalaq at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And most likely everyone would have gotten together at the end either way to the South Pole.
Yeah.
Like, take away Varrick's plot, nothing changes, dude.
I mean, you can also argue the same thing with Tenzin to a degree, that if you took away Tenzin's idea,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
Tenzin was completely separate from Korra.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better to have interwoven the character development with the entire plot, because that's a weak point for me, is that I feel like what I watched was partially pointless at times. Because I'm like, okay, so what's happening with Korra, or okay, what's happening with the main story, stuff like that. Like, it's not that I disliked it, but I found it not as interesting, or not as, there wasn't too much momentum when I watched book 2 compared to like book 3, where I just like really wanted to keep going with book 3, and then book 2 I was like, I'm kind of bored. I mean, of course, that's my opinion.
That's your opinion. I definitely have to have like a, what's it called? I'm not the strong defense, but I guess why I don't believe it's as bad as what people make it to be. But I agree with a lot of the criticisms. I mean, again, one of the biggest criticisms I ever had with book 2 is like, she has the ability to take away people's bending. What made her not take away Unalaq's bending? But then,
100%, bro. That was one thing I said strongly I hated.
But the only thing I can think about, and that's another reason why they also took away her ability to have the connections with the other avatars, is that she's already OP as it is. So it's like, if we want her to fight the next villains, we gotta weaken one season, and then they later, like last minute, get told that.
No. But here's the thing. just because Aang got her bending back, right? The spirit of Aang gave her
Yeah.
bending back. Doesn't mean she mastered Avatar state,
Yeah,
or doesn't mean
that's-
she gained the ability to enter Avatar state whenever she wanted. They established that in the first episode in book 2 when they did the race, when Korra was racing.
I mean, to be fair, at the ending of season 1, she was giving people bending, so you can tell she mastered at that point. Like if she's giving people bending, then she has to master it
That's
at
fair.
some point.
That's fair. That's fair.
So yeah, that's the thing about that. Like I said, that's just how it is. But I guess the good news behind book 2 was that she released the portals, and that opened up book 3.
Well, before we completely close book 2, the whole backstory with
Avatar 1.
Avatar 1 and all of that, I think that was a high point for that season.
Yeah.
I think that was a high point. Although for me personally, it added a lot of confusion into the nature of the Avatar and bending and all that stuff. It kind of muddied
we
the
talked
waters
about
a little
that.
bit. We've talked about it
Yeah.
in a separate video. He was with Kyoshi.
I was so pissed when that happened.
Yeah.
I was so pissed.
Yeah.
I remember even the first run through watching it before book 4 came out. I was like, okay, I really hope somehow she gets their connection back.
connection
I was like,
back.
okay, come on, Spirit of Aang, come back, come on.
Yeah.
It didn't
And so
happen
we're never gonna see a Spirit Aang. Like
ever
why?
again.
Yeah.
Why? Like what is
Okay, so in the
Why?
time span when you said that, right? When he was talking, I just thought of like a potential way they could have remedied the whole giving the bending back, right? Maybe let her do that, right, for that moment, and then in book 2 somewhere establish that somehow during that moment of weakness, she gained that power temporarily, or at least like it was a more temporary thing, and she didn't master it. Like she still has trouble getting into it sometimes, you know?
or
Well-
they could have just stuck to what they did and like Beifong doesn't get her powers back. Like
Exactly. That's actually how I rewrote book 2.
yeah, they should have just stuck to like these are the things that you said happened. Stick to the effects of what
Yeah,
you said.
that's
happened.
actually how I rewrote book 2.
That'd be dark. I
It-
mean,
it would be, like-
I mean, we would miss a lot of the cool fight scenes in season book 3.
No.
4 about
When I
Beifong.
rewrote it, right, I said that in book 2, she gave Beifong her bending back when she actually came back from connecting with Wan.
Okay, but see, this goes back to, again, as much as I don't like that they lost the Avatar connection, at the same time, with book 3, I feel like if her having the Avatar connection, there's a lot of like, I don't know, I feel like they would have found a smarter way to defeat Zahir if they had like, they can talk to the old airbenders again and
Interesting.
stuff like
So
that.
let's talk about that. Like what
That's
do
true.
you think? So you think that if she had the connection in book 3, then book 3 wouldn't have been as good?
I don't think it'd be less suspenseful because I feel like, because here's the thing, even in book 3, when the people got their airbending, one of the airbenders like, can you take my airbending away? And she could just, if someone didn't like airbending, she could take their airbending away, especially with Zahir. Oh, you know what, Zahir? Airbending gone, and now he's back. So it would have ended the whole.
No, Chuku's right, because when I rewrote book 2, I said that she there was no choice. She still had to
it
get
just,
her
it
connection.
ruins it. So I much as
severed.
it's one of those like, you know, as much as I hate that, at the same time, it's like it adds more suspense. It adds more like what am I supposed
That
to
is
do?
why she needs to get it back somehow in the future. That's the only way to keep things correct.
keep things correct.
No, I mean, dude, you don't know what can happen, right?
So we're saying that the only reason that she can take away people's bending is because Aang was able to do it.
I believe that.
And
Yes,
That's
accurate.
mainly the main reason.
That's accurate.
It makes sense.
Because Aang couldn't do it for Avatar state, right? When Aang was by himself before he met the lion turtle, he couldn't take anyone's
Yeah.
bending away. He learned it himself. That's how Korra knows, because she got the knowledge
From
him.
Aang.
interesting. I haven't actually thought about this.
Yeah.
Because so the assumption is okay, so are we looking at the whole thing of taking away people's bending as, was that something that the lion turtle gave Aang, or was that something that all the avatars could have done but they just didn't know how to, and the lion turtle taught Aang?
I think the lion turtle taught Aang.
Yeah, I feel like that was the
At
thing.
least when you think about it, right?
Hmm.
You know how the lion turtle does that
Yeah.
Yeah.
touch thing?
Yeah.
The lion turtle does that for benders as well, or for people to get bending.
Yeah.
I think if the lion turtle didn't do that to Aang, he wouldn't have gotten the ability.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So
So Korra needs to find a lion turtle if she wants
guess
to
so.
take away people's
I guess
pets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, they could have made it like so. It makes sense. They could have made it just that it's like a extremely difficult thing that you can't just easily do. But I guess that would have
Yeah. This.
taken away from
Yeah,
it.
but aside from that,
Yeah.
we talked about book 2's flaws and why we didn't like it.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, but-
Or at
definitely
least
gonna go
both
on
of us, and then
a strong video about my defense later. But
Okay.
Okay.
it's not this video.
Book 3 is the best book.
definitely, I agree.
By
Definitely,
far.
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
The best book of Legend of Korra.
Book 3 felt like, when you say that Korra feels like a movie, Book 3 to me is the one that really feels like a movie.
Exactly.
Like literally
Mm.
each episode ties into the next one so seamlessly that
Exactly.
you could probably do an edit where it's like a movie.
Yeah, yeah. There was the only episode that's sort of filler, and I don't even call it a filler. Was the episode where it's about? I think it's called the original Airbenders, where it's just focusing on the Airbenders, and then they're working with Tenzin. Like that
Okay.
episode, to be honest, not saying that it didn't have any importance because it does make you feel emotionally connected to Kai. Yeah, Kai.
Mm-hmm.
You feel more emotionally connected to Kai, but at the same time, like in terms of plot, that didn't really move like much
The
of the
story
plot.
forward.
Right.
for it. But other than that, yeah, book. I mean, geez, where do we begin with this book? Like they introduced one of my favorite characters. He like literally Zahir. I told Osi he's tied for Zuko in my like favorite.
Oh, really?
characters. Like
That's crazy.
He's in my top. Like literally, he's tied. Like it's like if Iroh's my favorite character, and then second is Zuko, it'd be Zahir and Zuko together because it's just literally my favorite thing with Zahir is like every time he says Guru Lahima, some action scene starts. It's like, you know who did this? The great Guru Lahima.
It's like
I'm
throwing
like,
a chair. in
whoa!
Buddha.
It's so perfectly nailed. I love it. And just
Yeah.
the reason why I love his character so much is like they're taking the wise man archetype and we're villainizing the wise man archetype, which is scary because usually the wise
It's like
man
an
archetype.
evil Iroh.
Yeah, basically, it's like usually that it's the archetype that you look for advice. So it's like to take the person you're looking for spiritual advice to
Mhm.
do harmful things. It's just mind blowing, especially for that type of show because that
Yeah.
show is all about spirituality, connecting with everything, and all of that. So
Mhm.
that being turned in a jaded or dark way,
Yeah, and and the fascinating thing about book 3 is that his motivation makes it's like a cohesive worldview that makes sense to him, and like everything he does makes sense when you consider his perspective and how he
Yes.
sees the world, and you can like put yourself in that kind of villain's shoes.
definitely.
And you can understand, okay, so his whole motivation is he wants absolute freedom for all people. And so he sees the structures of government. He's an anarchist. He sees the structures of government as chains that hold people back,
As oppressors.
as oppressive. And so his whole goal is that he wants to remove all forms of authority that exist over human beings. And so when you take it from that perspective, whether you think it's right or wrong, everything he does makes sense because of that. And it's fascinating to watch that, because like that's a real perspective that people in the world actually have, of like, we shouldn't have governments, we shouldn't have authorities dictating what's right and what's wrong for every human being. And this is kind of like taking that idea and carrying it out to its extent. It's like, okay, then we need to kill the queen and break down the walls of Ba Sing Se and all that crazy stuff. And it was very interesting to watch, and I was just like loving it every time. I especially remember the first time watching that and like seeing the walls fall down. I was just like, I was really freaking out. And then watching it again, I just like, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching it again, I felt like I liked it even more.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Definitely. I loved it even more, especially the part when he kills the Earth Queen. It's just, oh my God. I literally I died, especially when he says it's just like air. And then when there's nothing left but darkness. I'm like, literally everything he says is like a mic drop. It's just, I'm done. So
Yeah.
Zahir was definitely good. I mean, again, the cast wasn't annoying. It's funny how we always bring up the villains because that seems to be the interesting thing of the show. But yeah, like they took away the whole relationship stuff with Korra
Korra
and
and
Asami and
yeah,
and
yeah.
Mako. But so that stuff wasn't they were more like we felt like a relationship between Korra and Asami in terms of friendship.
You know what I loved about book 3? When they started to establish certain dynamics in characters.
Yeah.
Like Bolin with Opal, with Varric,
Yeah.
with just like so many dynamics that made book 4 very interesting.
Yeah.
Like book 3 was the foundation of all of that. Like Kai,
Definitely.
it felt like book 2, those characters pale in comparison.
That's true, other than Varric.
Mm.
But yeah, that there's a lot of interesting characters. I mean, again, we finally get to see airbending, so now we get to see what's like to have like multiple airbenders.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a nice element. One interesting thing about book 3 that people don't notice, and this is like some Avatar like fan stuff, is how they bring up Opal, right?
Yeah.
Not Opal. I mean Sue, who's
Mhm.
Lynn's sister. So do you know that the how they had the flashback where it shows her as a young child?
Yes.
Guess who voice acted her as a young child?
It sounds like Azula.
Well, no, that's Lynn. Lynn is Azula.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
But the
Yeah,
young child for Sue, who's playing Sue as a young child, guess who was her voice actor?
Who
It was the original voice actor for Toph.
Oh,
They
no.
originally got
Toph?
the original voice. If you listen to it, you
Oh,
can hear
wow.
Toph. They got the original voice actor of Toph to play
Oh, interesting.
Sue when she was like or teen, whatever.
Okay.
So you literally can hear it. Like it's like, oh my god, that's Toph. So
Okay.
that was very. Oh,
Um,
never really thought of it like that.
Yeah, it brought lava bending back, and it clarified it, because I think at least a question that I had before with in the Last Airbenders, is lava bending must be a combination of fire bending and earth bending. But then in this they show no, it's just earth bending.
Mhm.
It's just an extension of earth bending, which is awesome. And so I liked seeing that other people can have this ability other than just the avatar in their powers. So that was great. That was great to see, and it was like such an interesting aspect of like you're continuously pushing the lore farther.
Yeah.
and adding all these interesting stuff.
Not to mention, oh my god, the fight scenes. Every episode
Yes.
has some
Yes.
badass fight scene. and
The
you're
fight
just like,
scenes, honestly,
I always have to
in
rewatch it.
Korra are they get, some of them get to a point where they're better than the Last Airbender. The fight scenes, in my opinion, like that fight scene with Korra and Zahir at the end, it's better than anything from Last Airbender.
I
in my
think
opinion.
what makes it more powerful is because Zahir, because it's like he has his own character development within within that fight scene, and it's like so in storytelling, there's a thing called a positive character arc and a negative character arc,
Okay.
and obviously, positive character arc is when the character. Well, it's debatable if you can call Zahir a native character arc, but it's basically when a character becomes better from what the actions. While negative character arc is where the character becomes worse. I mean, you can argue Zahir's being better in his eyes, but that's a good example where he learned when he lost his girl, who was a combustion bender, which is also awesome. When he lost his girl, he learned to finally understand what Guru Lahima meant, which is let go of his earthly tether,
yeah.
become one with it, and enter the void, right? He enters the void and then he enters it flying, which is like, it's so cool to see a villain like develop to become even stronger and enlightened, which is why I love him as a character as well. It's just that he becomes enlightened as he's doing things. So the only gripes I do have with book 3, like small little gripes, and they're just kind of like better because they established that they had the lion turtles get people bending. It would have been better if lion turtles.
I do wish they explained harmonic convergence a bit better,
Yeah.
because they said, "Oh, harmonic convergence was the reason," but like, why?
Yeah, it's just that's their excuse. Another problem I had was that, I mean, it was cool. I know that, Zuko hasn't been a fighter for a while, but I didn't like how easily he got defeated
Oh
in
yeah,
that fight.
for real.
It was just like,
When he got knocked on his ass.
yeah, literally. I'm just
I hated
thinking,
that.
you're going to tell me, I mean, I know Mako and Bolin, they're powerful benders, but I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like Zuko would still be strong. So I didn't like how he got defeated so
Yeah,
easily.
no, because I remember the first time ever watching it when Mako and Bolin were able to hold their own against them. Well, at first they couldn't, but
Yeah.
later on they could.
Yeah.
I just thought about how ridiculous that seemed.
Yeah.
That, you know, Zuko would just get knocked on his ass right away and not be able to do anything. And then
Yeah.
like Mako and Bolin somehow can. That's crazy.
Yeah, not to mention that they'd established that they're powerful, like against any, like multiple benders fighting one, they'll still be powerful. So it's like the White Lotus, I'm pretty sure they're strong benders and they're able to defeat the White Lotus like easy. But then Mako and Bolin, I don't know, they just had, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they should have had more of a run for their money.
I definitely agree. And I needed to see, I think for Mako, it made sense because he didn't use lightning the first time fighting. But for Bolin, he kind of got lava bending out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's
and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I wish there was some type of discussion between Ghazan and Bolin where Ghazan gave him hints about how to do lava bending before he actually did it. Because honestly, it came out of nowhere. And at that time, I really didn't like Bolin.
Yeah.
The first time watching it,
Oh.
I didn't like Bolin.
I don't know.
The first time watching it.
Yeah, I love Bolin.
He's actually my favorite character in that whole team.
When I rewatched it, I was fine.
Okay.
And I definitely like Bolin in book 4.
Okay.
But in book 3, he was making such dumb jokes the first time I watched it.
Okay.
Like, oh, he's Aiwei's invisible or something, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the way he treated Opal, I was like, what an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. There's just so many moments that I didn't think Bolin deserved lava bending.
Okay, I feel you. I feel you.
But then that was the first time I ever watched it. But then rewatching it, you know, the fact that it already happened, I knew what to expect. So I didn't mind it as much.
Yeah.
But sometimes when he acted dumb, I was still like, oh, come on.
And then the next question I had was the Avatar state. Like, although it was nice that the Avatar state was revealed with the poison being forced into it, I would assume, especially the part when she thought her father was dead, she would go Avatar state. But for some reason, she didn't. And I didn't understood why. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, well, we've talked
That's
about
a fair
like
point.
the Avatar state seems to be a problem for this series for Legend of Korra.
That's true.
Where it's almost like they only use it when
Because Korra supposedly mastered the Avatar state.
But even then, okay, let me put it this way: she's chained up. You don't think maybe I should go to the Avatar state to get out of these chains to fight? Like, that's just one thing I was like, I mean, okay, like, I love the fights. Don't get it twisted. Chain up Korra with her father fighting Zahir. Oh my God, that fight seems amazing. But same time, I'm just thinking, why is there not going to Avatar state?
Yeah.
I was just confused about that.
Yeah.
But at the end, that was a great ending, especially with her going through that traumatic experience.
Which led to book 4.
Yeah.
Which made me appreciate book 4 way more rewatching it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I
same.
think book 4 is the most underrated season. Like, a lot of people, like, I mean, obviously we hate, like, a lot of people hate book 2, of course. And then book 1 is fun. But I'm debating whether I like book 4 more than book 1, because I feel like book 4 had a lot of...
I like book 4 more than book 1.
Yeah, like, it had a lot more, yeah.
It had way more emotional impact.
Yeah, exactly.
or the main villain is this dictator
Exactly.
who wants to take control and establish her authority over everyone. And so it was interesting that we've gone from this side to this side now. It's the other extreme.
Yeah.
So if this side didn't work, the other side might work, right? But
Yeah.
we get to see that, like, when you take any of these ideologies to their ultimate extreme, they all fall apart.
Yeah.
And it was I appreciated it on that level, seeing Kuvira, her character, and her motivations, and the way that the other nations were reacting to her.
Yeah.
It was almost like we want to not have to deal with it because we don't want to cause trouble, but at the same time, she's not willing to play on that same level. And so eventually you have to deal with it, even if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think so. Like, just like how I feel like every season is a different movie. So, like, the first one is like a mystery. Second one's supposed to be like a fantasy adventure. Third one is like this action thriller. And then this one is like I like to say it's more political.
Yeah.
Like, you're seeing a lot of the politics in terms of like, what could they do? How does it work? You kind of see how the villain becomes more insane as time goes on. Because usually in the first I feel like with all the other villains, they're already like, this is my ideology. This is what I believe with, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to say they're insane, but you get the point is you kind of like, they're already on the villain route. This here, it's like, she's not a villain yet, but we know she's getting there. But you kind of,
well, maybe, I don't know about that, because she apparently had been like messing up all the other towns that she was conquering before, and Bolin had no idea.
That's fair enough.
So I think that was something that she's been doing from before the season started.
Yeah, she is, but I guess from this, like, you kind of see how she gets more into madness. Like, you could kind of, like, I feel like all the other ones, like, I feel like they're already were in there, like I don't want to say madness, but they're already were like, this is what my strong point. She didn't struggle.
It seemed
but
like
at the
a
same
transition.
time, but you could see a transition with her, which I kind of
like. For Kuvira, like, I feel like what was the instigation of the change was power. Every time she saw an opportunity to get more and more power, she took it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When she took the new power, it sort of developed her into a more power hungry, more like forceful, I'm going to get what I want. And like we see that in the spirit vines when she figured out that what they can do.
Yeah, exactly.
And she forces Varric to make them. And then we see that like with the big, huge mecha thing. And then we see that she doesn't want to surrender when fighting Korra. Yeah. Instead, she sees the cannon and just decides to use it.
Yeah.
And it's just like continuous draw to this power where she'll do anything for what she wants, including killing her own husband or like future husband.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I kind of like that.
I kind of wish that, I think that I appreciate the time jump, but I kind of wish we got more from Kuvira.
That's true.
Pre this story.
I do wish that they saw a little bit more of her backstory.
Yeah, just because I didn't really understand her connection with Sue and their family. I know that she was in season 3 for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't get that feeling or that relationship because we're jumped into a time where they've already broken off.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah. And I kind of wish that we got that backstory.
I think in this case, for me, what I really liked about this book wasn't necessarily Kuvira, but the actions that she did basically caused for some interesting like scenes and scenarios. Like for instance, Bolin, Opal, and Lin rescuing Sue and them.
Yeah,
like that was one of my favorite ones. Yeah,
too.
And then like Toph appearing too.
Yes. Yeah. I love how Toph brought up the whole, well, this villain, they were this crazy and this prison was that crazy and all that. And I kind of like how Toph's character, I'm glad that they did what they did with Toph's character because they kind of mentioned at the end of season 3 or during the, what's it called? Sozin's comment, they kind of mentioned that Toph has issues and they kind of were like, yeah, that's not important. And now you kind of see what is the effects of her issues. And she kind of learned and then she kind of grew it up realizing like, yeah, I'm not the perfect person, but at the end of the day, you guys turn out all right. So I kind of like that they brought up the issues that she had. So it kind of gives more of a character arc for Toph, which it was just beautiful. Especially that scene where she said, I could have taken care of you at my age. I was just like, they just know how to nail her character so well. So I really like that. And then one of my favorite moments, again, is when Korra goes back to Zahir. And this is why Zahir isn't my top favorite character.
Yeah, I love that moment too.
Yeah.
The first time watching it, I was like, yeah.
Like, for me, second time watching this, it has more impact to me because, like, I've started, especially going into spirituality and stuff, is like trauma is a big thing that affects everyone. And the way they addressed it in the show was sort of like, you can't just like get over past trauma by just ignoring it or by having like some confirmation bias that you're over it. Instead, you have to learn to accept it and almost kind of like love it in a way. And then by you accepting what happens and kind of like being okay with it, you can finally move on. And I like the way they did it by her going to Zahir. And Zahir, the one who caused the trauma, is helping her. So that's like brilliant. Like to me, that's really brilliant writing. And that's why I love Zahir again, because it's just like you have the villain who did all this mistake going to help the hero. And it's just...
Yeah, because it matches with his ideology.
Again, it doesn't contradict what he's doing too. Like it makes sense. He's like, well, this girl's a power hungry person. I don't want no power hungry person. So of course I'm gonna be on your side, Avatar. It's just, it's perfect. And that's why I felt this season was underrated, because like that's a like
Yeah,
very
I think
important
Korra's
lesson.
journey in this book was probably the most meaningful,
Yeah.
and it developed her character the most into a character that I actually grew to love and grew to like really like care about as a character.
Yeah.
Because if they left off, like for instance, book 4 never happened, I feel like I wouldn't care about Korra as much.
Well, the ending
character.
of book three would make me pity her. I'd be like, dang.
Okay, yeah,
Is that how we're gonna end it?
Okay,
She's in a wheelchair.
I wasn't thinking of it like that, but I see what you mean. But I'm just saying, like in general, if they didn't make book 4 the way it was, like her recovering and stuff, like say they started book 4 with her already recovered. You know?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think I would have liked Korra as much.
Yeah.
The character, not the show.
Yeah.
But book 4 was the thing that made me love her character.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got to see more Varric too, so I always like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Varric and Bolin was one of the highlights of that book. For real. Their adventure figuring out Kovira was crazy.
Yeah.
and they're like, Kovira is crazy. They both say it at the same time.
Yeah.
And then they have to like escape, and the way that Varric was about to blow them up and then Bolin rescues. Oh my god, just
That's why like honestly the comedy that surrounds Bolin is like part of what makes me love like Legend of Korra so
yeah,
much.
Yeah.
book 4 Bolin was
Yes.
amazing
And-
with
and,
Varric.
like, yeah.
With
Yeah.
Varric, oh my god.
Varric's
the
comedy
funniest
and
stuff, dude.
Bolin's comedy is just like, and then Milo whenever he's on there.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah,
honestly-
Milo, you can't handle this much. Milo.
Exactly.
Jesus.
I just
Yeah.
love those characters so much. But yeah, that's part of why I think that honestly
Like, most people didn't see Korra Sami is because they're two female characters.
mm,
Because if you take the ending of book 3 and what Sami said, and then even at the before they hold hands at the end of book 4, like if you replaced it with a male, you probably would have saw, oh yeah, they must like each other, because Sami says something where it's like, I can't imagine losing you either, as well as losing my father. So you could, I guess that's the argument. I don't know. I still feel like it kind of came out of the blue. I don't know.
No, I agree.
yeah.
I remember watching it with my girlfriend at the time, and then I was like, no, that's not happening. And then she was like, and then she they held hands or something at the end, right?
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, I told you, and I was like,
Yeah.
huh, I guess so. I was still kind of in denial.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then the writers came out and like flat out said it.
yeah,
yeah.
not that I really cared that much, but I just didn't see it coming.
Honestly,
Me personally.
yeah. I don't think the main issue is that I think that okay, so the whole season 4, and I think it's not just with the Asami and Korra thing, but I think generally it wasn't a satisfying ending for me.
Hmm.
I think it was a good story with Kuvira and all of that. And the adventure was good. I liked the adventure. I don't think it was a satisfying ending for me. It didn't seem like it was the last.
I think I'll agree with you on
story.
that, because I wanted more from each character
yeah.
before the ending.
Yeah.
I feel like I wanted some last words from everyone, or
Mhm.
just some interactions that I felt were missing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the whole Asami and Korra thing, it felt very much just like it just felt like you brought this up out of nowhere. And like, oh, we're ending this, so we had to do something at the very end. And it almost seemed like a cop out because you're doing this at the very end. So there's no repercussions for what you're doing. There's
Yeah.
no like consequences.
Yeah.
I think they
of having
continued
to
it in the
show-
comics.
Yeah, they definitely continue in the comments.
In
Yeah.
the comics.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah.
We gotta get on that eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
guess so.
yeah. I felt I totally agree, and this goes back to we have to compare it to Last Airbender because it's a sequel to it. They all had like from where they were now. I mean, in Avatar: Last Airbender, for the way they begin, for where they are now, it's like a major change.
Mm.
Korra, they tried a little bit, like you see a little bit of character development, but I just don't really. Again, it just to me, Korra again doesn't feel like I said it's cohesive. I just feel like they're all individual movies. And like again, I do agree in terms of the series finale.
Mhm.
Definitely was not a satisfying series finale.
No.
But for that season, I thought it was a pretty good ending for that season.
The story was a good story.
It was a good ending of that season as well. So I definitely So when we come comparing to that, I don't know. I just, yeah, it's, yeah, that's where it's really tough because I can understand people who really love, I mean, we love Airbender for sure. But like, imagine watching a show that had this like amazing character development, amazing all this stuff, and this show just decides not to do it. But then again, I always go back to the argument, and I have to play the argument again that this show was not meant to be multiple seasons. It was just supposed to be one story, a different story.
That's really
out all the other stories. So for the writers to do that, and I can understand being someone into like entertainment, to coming up with something like you plan something to go this way, but then the executive business is like, no, we got to do it this way. So to do that, it's very tough. So I guess I forgive the show for a lot of mistakes it has. And because of coming from that, I can enjoy it. And I still think in terms of an action television show or action fantasy, whatever, I still think it's pretty good. Like there's a lot of great things. So it's definitely not something like what I said for the Avatar the Avatar best show, whatever, or Avatar, what was it, our favorite, why we love the show, our love letter.
Yeah.
I definitely, again, this is not a show I could recommend to everyone. This is something, a show that I would recommend hardly to like, if you're Avatar fans and you just love the lore. If you just love the whole idea of Avatar and the concepts of it, you should definitely watch the show and enjoy
I think
it.
it's worth watching for Avatar fans for sure. If you like Last Airbender, I think even if the story doesn't it's not as great, I think it's worth watching for the fact that you can see some continuation of like the past characters.
Yeah.
Like you get to see Iroh again, you get to see Zuko again, you get to see
Katara,
Toph, and so on. But also because the art is amazing, the fight choreography is great.
Really brilliant.
There are some great moments for sure.
Yeah.
Like I know we'll probably do this in a different video. We sort of went like a book rundown. We went through all seasons and our thoughts on it. But we didn't necessarily address the points of the haters directly, right?
Yeah.
Because there are definitely points that I'm sure they made that we can address literally directly, as in, like, we read them out and then we address it.
Definitely.
But I'm not sure why they hate it. You're the one who,
I guess
we'll address it in a different video. But the point is, like, I think it's still worth watching despite the people who do hate it and vocally say so loudly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that I think it just goes back to like expectations again. Like I think that Avatar: Last Airbender had really brilliant expectations that it created in series. People didn't get it with Korra, so now it's just a matter of like, do you enjoy it? And I think it's still an enjoyable story. It still has a lot of good elements. I definitely don't think that we should have never have Korra at all. I'm glad that we have Korra and we're able to see a lot of things, especially since they gave the origins of the first Avatar. Like that's really important for us to have. Yeah, I mean, it could have been better, but it is what it is. And I still prefer it more than Dragon Prince. So yeah.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Okay.